Every time.
Hey everybody, this is the Tuned and Strong podcast, and I am joined by Jen Cabas May from Tuned and Toned Performance.
And this over here is Angela McCuiston of Music Strong. Today we're going to be talking about, I guess we just passed our 50th episode, which is kind of impressive considering where we came from.
Oh my gosh.
So we're going to talk about, kind of where the podcast has been, how it's grown, little recap, talk about where we're heading into as separate businesses, and then maybe even as growing the podcast going forward. So
Mhm.
yeah.
It has been a fun. So this is our apparently our 52nd episode. We had a bit in the beginning where we didn't have graphics and they were
Right.
all numbered and titled, and then everything got wonky and we had no idea. Are we on 72? Are we on 15A? Is that a thing?
Right.
Got real weird real fast. So we could be wrong, but we're about 50. I think Brian is 51. So
I'm pretty
we're
sure.
safe at this point. Well,
Yeah.
we
Actually,
started
I think
this.
last week Brian was 50.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
According to the playlist, Brian was 50. Last week
Oh,
was 51, and
snap.
we
I thought
didn't
he
even
was
realize
50.
it.
I don't see. I don't math well. So that's anyway. I don't know.
But
There we are. So
yeah.
how did we meet? Because our very first, we have only met in person once, and that was our
Right.
episode 1. Because we're like,
Right.
somebody
Right.
said we should meet.
Right.
So
Well, I had heard about you through a couple people, and I just didn't have your contact, basically, is what happened. Like I knew from Ava and couple of, I can't remember who else. Ava specifically I remember, but the others, I'm like they were
oh,
other FSU grads or, something like that. So when I don't remember who found you on social media either, but it was some sort of Instagram, like somebody found you and that put
that's right.
us in touch. And I was
That's
like,
what it was.
I've been waiting to talk to you.
That's what I was trying to think of this the other day. I'm like, who put us in contact with each other? Because
Mhm.
somebody was right on, like, you need to meet so and so, and we're like, sure,
Yeah.
let's meet up. Dude, in Florida, because
Yeah.
you came over from Tallahassee,
Hmm.
and I was playing a concert with Sinfonia Gulf Coast in Destin, and so we met up in not in Panama City, but if you guys remember Hurricane Michael, it was Michael, right? The last one, the big
I
one.
don't remember. They kind of blur together.
5.
I mean, uh,
It's Michael, right?
Irma was the one that they told us was going to be biggest, but I don't remember it doing as much damage as the
I think
ones
it
that
was
came
Michael.
before. That sounds more correct
We'll
because
go with
Hermine
it. And
was
if
the
we're
one that
wrong,
knocked down the power line. So
it was a couple years ago. Yeah, it was what happened right before COVID happened. So
yeah.
my friend Laura, funny story, like we go way back to when I lived in Panama City. She was in the choir. I was in the Panama City Pops, which is now called something else. We met each other through that, and then we've just kept in touch. And now I always go down to stay with her and her husband, and we like visit and whatnot. And so she has a house in not Miramar,
Lynn
Lynn
Haven.
Haven. The reason I
Yeah.
bring up Hurricane Michael or whatever hurricane it was,
Hmm.
that hurricane wiped out. I mean, it missed Panama City Beach. It hit Panama City, and if you guys don't know, they are different.
Yes, they are.
In Panama City, people do not like to go across the bridge to Panama City Beach,
No,
and
they don't.
vice versa. It's a thing. When I lived there, they're like, you know, when to go to the beach. I'm like, anyway. So Laura lives in Lynn Haven, and Lynn Haven got wiped out, like Mexico
Yeah.
Beach, just decimated from Hurricane Michael. Her house
Right.
was actually okay. So I think this was maybe a year past when you and I
I think
met.
so because we didn't have a hard time driving out to meet you,
That was right.
which
Yep.
because I was teaching, I was still teaching in Niceville at the time. So that drive of the I-10, there
Oh,
was like a week where I couldn't go out there because I'm like, the roads are closed.
yeah.
Like I cannot get there. And then when they started opening the roads back up, it was kind of creepy actually because it was,
Oh, it's so
they had
creepy.
all those down trees all over and they cleared them so
Yeah.
that traffic could flow, but they took up the entire shoulder with just fallen. I'm like, okay, don't have a flat because you have no shoulder for about half the drive, like in spots, half the
Yeah.
drive. Um, so
It's
I
nothing but trees
remember,
down there, pine trees. Nothing but pine trees.
right. So I remember we didn't have a hard time. We took not I-10. We took
We probably took 98. Or not
uh
98.
I don't remember. It was, I don't know. It was the surface road, if you will. It's a much more pleasant drive. But that was not that one was blocked off longer than the 10 was, and we had no problem taking the other road. So
Right.
it was, I think, the year after that.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so you came over there and I had just
Hmm.
gotten done with a concert with Symphonia the night before. And so
Hmm.
I was on my way to the airport. So literally I left Destin, you left Tallahassee, we met at her house like a couple
Right.
hours before I had to catch a flight out of
Yeah.
Panama City Beach, and she was going to drive me or what. I don't remember what happened. When she's like,
Something
"You
like
can
that.
use my house." So if you wonder where the heck we are, this is the only time
That's
we
where we were.
met in person. We're on her back porch, and we
Right.
were like, you had a tablet, and like we didn't have any equipment at
No.
all. There were these wind chimes that wouldn't
No.
shut up. It's all
Right. Right. It was,
and your fiance now husband was also there.
yes, he was. Yeah, yeah, because we had gotten engaged, I think, shortly before you and I
Yep.
met. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
No,
Yes. Yeah, because it was in our first episode was 2020, I'm pretty sure.
it was okay. So it was like
Yeah.
February 2020.
Yeah. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure. Yeah. So
talk about some
it was kind of
timing.
like, you know, at the time, I mean, I was still trying to do a separate podcast
Oh, that's right.
for just me, and it just did not pan out, which is for the better, I think. But yeah, we
Okay,
met up and it was like, okay, well, let's record an episode, see what happens. We'll do it on my podcast. What?
yep. We're like, we're just gonna record ourselves talking, and if this takes off, what I think our first
Yeah,
episode was like 2 hours long or something. But you know
right.
what? If Joe
Well,
Rogan can pull it off, so can we. How about that?
yeah, you know,
You know?
yeah, basically. And I know we recorded in February, and then it was. I don't think we recorded again until after everything was shut down. Did we?
Yeah, I was. I want to say it was like April or something because I don't remember what we were gonna do, but then we realized,
Mhm.
ooh, we should talk about this. So that was one of our first ones,
Yeah,
like at home workouts. I
yeah,
think.
that was episode 3.
What was two?
2 is Right Fit Coaching. I've got the playlist right in front of me. 2
Oh,
is
that's
Right
good.
Fit
That's good.
Coaching.
Right. So if you don't know what
Made
right
but it,
fit means, like how to
yeah,
find a coach, who are you
yeah.
looking for?
But episode 2 was posted in May of 2020, well after the shutdowns. So,
Oh
yeah, we
wow.
had a couple month gap while we were
Oof.
trying to kind of figure out what we were
But you know
gonna do.
what? The whole pandemic there, we talked a lot. We didn't record. We were
Mhm.
just like, we had no idea you're supposed to do things regularly. And so we just kind of like, oh,
Mhm.
we got an idea. Let's record today.
You know?
Yeah.
Not
And then
not that, yeah. I mean, because it was trying to figure out everything all at the same time. It was
everything.
rough. It was
And we're
rough,
all
rough,
sitting
rough.
at home going, what do we do? What do we do? I'm like, I got all this time. It's beautiful. I'm going to sit out in my backyard. Didn't
Right.
realize, there's all this noise from dogs and birds and people and stuff. I'm like, it's pretty outside. So we did the whole thing
Yeah.
about that. We did DOMS. We did,
Yeah.
oh
Just
gosh.
soreness, if you don't know. Dom's is soreness.
Right. But the whole thing, and then we got into the whole social media thing. Okay, so
Oh,
guys,
yeah.
travel back in time with us to March 2020, April 2020, May 2020, those 3 months when everybody, the world was just like, we're in this together and we're all scared and we're all frustrated and we're just like, what do we do? And we're like, that's where we were. And we're seeing, remember social media, that's when social
Mhm.
media really blew up in the fitness
Yeah.
world because everybody's trying, we have literally a captive
Yeah.
audience and we were trying to capitalize on that. And you and I got
Right.
sick and tired of just seeing like it wasn't like, tons of shake weights and thigh masters and junk like that, but it was
Right.
all these at home workouts that were not appropriate for musicians.
Right. Right. And a lot of, I mean, beyond that, it was a lot of frustration with, it got so loud on social media that you
So
just got
loud.
drowned out. Drowned out. I'm like,
It was
okay.
constant.
You know,
Oh,
like I definitely stepped away from it because I'm going, it's too much. There's too
it
much
was.
coming at me and
Mhm.
I can't deal with that.
Yeah, in the
So I
beginning, it
think,
was great because we could still keep in touch, and then it
right.
just got to be all the time. Y'all remember this? It was like all the time.
Mhm.
Then we did an episode on social media and the like culture, which is
Oh,
funny because
yeah.
we're not quite at that same point anymore. But during
Right.
that time,
Very
what was
much
it?
so.
Yeah, it was all about getting likes. It wasn't
Right.
about
Right.
quality, right? Is
Mhm.
that that was what it was about, right?
Yeah. 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 It was like, well, what are you showing off and just
Oh,
the
likes.
basic open level psychology of social media and what it does to you and how being bombarded like that is not the
I
best thing in
mean,
the world to try
no, I
to
mean
survive.
we got that like initial dopamine rush of
Yeah.
the likes, and then people just started posting for likes, and it was just it. Y'all go back and listen to that and remember where you were and remember that because it's just it was such a different time because I
Mhm.
know now people are going to argue with me here, and frankly I don't care. Argue if you want. That's what our country's founded on, is free speech, so go for it. But COVID's basically over. I don't care what she had to say about that. So I just said it. Thing is, those 3 months, we didn't know what was going on. The world shut down.
Right.
And then we get all these dissenting opinions. And then we're like, do we do this? Do we do that? Do we do this? And it was so back and forth. And we were just trying to find out what works for us. And I was
Yeah.
going to go somewhere that and I totally lost it. No, the light culture. Okay. So we were going like, nope, I lost it again. Darn concussion. Nope. This is happening frequently. If
I
anybody
mean,
knows anything about concussions, please talk to me. It's not
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Anyway, it
I
had to
mean,
do with the likes and the whole, why we're posting what we're posting, and then you
right.
wanted to be seen as being active. And you wanted to be
Right.
seen as, and then it morphed into you want to be seen as getting the jab and this and that. And it's like, go back to the beginning where we all were, and it didn't have anything to do with likes. We were all just scared together. And we all just wanted to stay healthy, and we all wanted to keep our jobs, etc. Right? So I don't want to go down that path, but it's just kind of an interesting thing to see where we started there and we ended up here. But that episode I thought was it was kind of a vulnerable post for both of us.
Mhm.
Because I think, if I
I
remember, we
mean,
were both a little scared of recording it.
I mean, I don't feel like I feel like there was a different one that I was afraid of recording, but I
Oh,
don't feel like
probably.
I was nervous about that one because it was just I was so tired from being like physically worn out from the social media issues. And I know that that
Mhm.
was I think that was around the time where it was, we recorded, and then we kind of backed off for a bit.
Yeah, we did.
Um, and I think it was just there was just too much.
Yeah.
Um, Now I know that we then took that and we're like, well, this is not healthy, so let's talk about how to be healthy
How to
as a
be healthy.
musician,
Yep.
how to be yeah, we had our healthy habits thing, we had like how to deal with the medical industry.
What were our healthy habits topics? We had like
Let
three
me
or four of them,
see.
right?
We had at least 3. We had nutrition, we had exercise, and we had don't work out to be healthy,
Oh, okay. So if you're in my
to
10-week
quote
group
be
challenge
healthy.
right now, yeah,
Yeah.
I actually posted that in the group yesterday because it has to do with I'm doing this whole 10-week habit changing post. And we talked about the habit book
Mhm.
too, the no sweat book
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the science of habits. And oh my gosh, that Charles Duhigg book is just brilliant. But if you're in the habit course, I actually posted about that because if you're trying to change your habits around as we speak, it's January 27th. Okay. Everybody's fallen off the wagon at this point, quote unquote, of your diet
Yeah.
resolutions. It happens every year,
Right.
right? So the
Yeah.
whole goal of that was let's do this whole series where we take 1 week at a time and we just learn about ourselves. And we go with this with an air of curiosity, which, as
Mhm.
we have found through all
Mhm.
these podcasts, that comes up as a recurring theme.
Yeah.
Getting away from judgment and getting into curiosity is like the
Yeah.
key to a lot of stuff,
Mhm.
fitness and musician wise. So
Yeah.
I actually posted the whole thing about nutrition. So I'm glad you I'm glad you mentioned that one because that was good. And then we got
Yeah.
into
I mean, we covered a lot of topics. Everything I think that we could think of at the time
yeah.
for just the basics of being healthy and being,
Mhm.
I don't know, do we want to use the term well? I don't know. But as a musician, we covered that very,
Yeah.
very much in the first, I guess 16 episodes to be quite specific.
Mm.
Um, so we did that, and I think it's funny because I pulled up our very first interview
That was
recording.
Yannick,
That was
because you weren't there.
it was Rusty.
Was Rusty our first one and Yannick was the second one? Sorry. Got so
Yes,
confused.
Rusty
Oh
was the first one,
gosh.
and I think it's funny that we had our February 1st meeting, and then our second episode was posted in May of 2020, and our first interview was with Rusty April of 2021. So almost a year
Wow.
later, we
Yeah.
decided to switch, not fully, but switch formats for all intents and purposes. Um, and I gotta tell you, I've been really liking the interview
Oh yeah.
approach. I feel like we're getting so much more. Topics are easier, of course, to come up with because you have somebody else, right? We don't have to just be like, we're going to talk at you about this today. There's somebody
Right.
else and their story. I feel like it helps with exposure to. I mean, if you have found us and you were like, well, that's cool, but I really wanted to, I've got dystonia. I don't know how that works. Well, now you've got Anna that you can reach out to. I really like yoga, but how do I do that without? Well, now you've got
Veronica.
Veronica.
Oh, or Corsinor.
Or
Them too.
Corsinor. I mean, they've got all sorts of stuff,
All
and
kinds of stuff.
I learned what I'm totally blanking out. Christine Clancy. What does she do?
Christine. Oh gosh, that was an incredible
What's
episode.
her topic? What's her medium? What's it called? Bu- 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 bu-
Now you asked me and I blanked out. I didn't remember.
Tamani. I had to look it up. Tamani.
Tamani. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I
it.
had
And
no
then
idea what that was. So
Hannah from Corsinor also does Tamani, but
that's what
Christine was the
reminded me.
first female or first person in the US. I don't remember if it's female and US to be certified in Tamani. And Hannah, I don't know if she's the second, but like they hold each other in high regard. I mean, it's just like,
Right.
you interviewed Christine. Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah.
such a cool thing. And
Yeah.
Rusty actually talked about Wim Hof, I think, a little bit. Right? Didn't he? With the
I
whole
don't
ice bath stuff?
remember, but I would not be shocked. And by the way, I did actually see a video with Wim Hof himself in it. And that dude is crazy.
Yep.
Like fun crazy.
Fun crazy.
Definitely has a lot of stuff going on that I'm like, that is absolutely fascinating.
It is.
And it's valuable information, but he is nuts. I'm like, I'm not sure how many drugs you did to get your brain to that state, but
what? Like the whole thing with, and I think Mike touched on this, Mike and Rusty, and the whole thing with ice baths and breathing and all that stuff. There's another person I follow on Instagram. If you're listening, I apologize. I don't remember your name. You know, Instagram is, you remember people's handles
yeah.
All I remember is she doesn't speak, like English is not her first language. She's either in Sweden or Norway. And she's a strength trainer and a flute player. And I saw her dipping through the ice the other day. Like they cut a hole in the ice somewhere and there's a whole bunch of people jumping in the ice. I'm like, what if you get under that? What if you get under the ice? It's scary. And she was like, yeah, that's a total thing. That you got to be really careful, but they put a rope on you and it's a really safe, whatever. But I mean, and then there's this whole science behind, that we don't need to get into it today. But Rusty was the first person who I think talked about that. And if I've been following Rusty forever, and he talks about it just about every day. He posts on his Instagram now these ice baths and like jumping in the river when it's cold. And I'm like, oh my gosh, because his thing was about I can do difficult things. And he takes a cold shower every morning. He got up at 7 a.m. to go skydive. I mean, these crazy things. And it was but wasn't it just the thing we all needed to hear at that point?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, because that was still early 2021. Things were really sort of okay, but not really. It was just a very uncertain time. So his talk really couldn't have come at a better moment because everybody was like, well, is it okay to be out and about? Is it not okay? What do we, I don't know. It was still that kind of thing. That was stage 2 of that kind of, what do we do?
And he was so full into the positive mindset and focus on what you can do. Focus on what's healthy. Focus on you.
Yeah.
it was just so good. I mean, and I loved his thought. Like, he doesn't make excuses for anything.
No.
Which was refreshing, because on social media, especially now, you hear excuses for everything. And actually, that got into another topic we got into about no excuses on which one was it? We talked about was it Jocko's book? It's black with white trim, and I can't remember the name of it. He's a Navy SEAL. No, shoot. No, I can't remember. We referenced it. It's in our show notes, I promise.
Okay.
A picture of it is in the show notes on my website. That's extreme
Ownership.
Yes, that was it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, there we go. Teamwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it came from that, I think, where he's just like, I can do difficult things. And there's power and autonomy, and there's agency in difficult things, which is exactly what Chase talked about. Oh, I loved Chase.
Yeah. He was character.
Oh my God.
I'm scrolling through our recordings, and I'm like, do I have my favorites? Yes. But I really liked every conversation we had. There wasn't one that I would go back and be like, that wasn't really worth our time. No, it was really, they were very enjoyable conversations.
They all
And I
were.
feel like I got something out of every single one of them, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
I wish you'd been there for Coach Yannick. He was such a nice dude. And he had, I mean, just his way of approaching things was so interesting. We called it connecting the dots, because he literally connected dots of your
Yeah.
life and your psychology and your nutrition and how he did that as a bass player, as a DJ, as he went from the classical world to the electronic world and dealing with all of that. I mean, it was just brilliant. I'm like, as a first interview, second interview. Well, the first solo interview we did. I don't know why I keep thinking he's the first. I don't know. But I mean, it just couldn't have been better for like early on. It was just that beautiful bridge, the gap. Plus, he's not even in the States, so it's even better, I thought.
Yeah.
Because we really bridged another gap, which is across the ocean.
I remember, actually, not to change the subject, I remember why you think Yannick was first. It's because Rusty's interview was the one that we lost.
That's what it was.
We had to re-record.
We did. You guys did a great first interview. Oh, it was so good.
I liked our second interview too.
Also,
yeah, that was tech issues of like, it's gone. You know, like,
you want to talk about horror on our end? We're like,
oh my God. No explanation as to where it went or why. Everything had worked up till that point. I mean, Rusty was episode 18, so we had 16, because the first one was in person, 16 successful recordings.
It was fine.
And the second I'm like, oh no.
He was so nice about it.
It really was. Like, if you're listening, Rusty, thank you for doing this twice with us.
Thank you, Rusty. Yeah.
True
story. That's why I thought of it as first, because it probably shows up first on the list, but he was the second.
I think our first interview with him was the first one.
Right.
But I think that we re-interviewed him after Yannick.
I'm
pretty sure.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was a character. We've had quite a few characters.
Mike.
Mike is a character. Vinny and Roy both.
Oh my gosh, these two are such powerhouses, but in the national musician scene. But so like Roy's stories of walking in on Prince in his pajamas.
Fantastic.
What was the story where he spilled something all over himself and Prince looks at him and goes, "But why?" Like, what? He's Prince. He can say what he wants. And then
Yeah, I mean
and what I loved about Vinny's episode where he talks, I mean, that would have been a good one to lead into Brian's episode about lucrative artistry, about how he started from nothing and then went to here, and Ed has no problem charging basically whatever the heck he wants.
Yeah.
The man is living the dream at this point.
Yeah.
It makes no apologies, nor should he, nor should any of us.
Right.
Which is
and if you're not sure why we're saying that, go check out the episode I guess it was 51 with yep, no, 50. Episode 50 with Brian Witkowski. Yeah, go check that one out if you haven't heard it yet.
Dr. Brian Witkowski. I
Doctor.
so
Yes.
felt bad about not calling him by his title. Doctor, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, those
I
two
mean,
and Veronica's episode go pretty much hand in hand, I think. I mean, we talked about mindset and Mike's too. We talked a lot about mindset. We
yeah.
talked about
Well,
his was the power of words.
yeah. Yeah, I'm like
And
that was entirely Mike's episode.
okay.
It's like how do we talk to ourselves and then of course his story too, which is just crazy to think about what he came from versus what he's doing
Oh, I
now,
know.
like insane.
And the man just, he keeps inventing himself. But the whole story of
Mhm.
like, hey, I'm just going to go to Sweden and I'm going to whatever, or he's in Germany or whatever it
Right,
was. I mean,
right.
that's a
Yeah.
wild story.
Insane.
Yeah, right.
Very entertaining.
Yeah, please go
Um,
listen.
yeah.
And
I mean,
Chase's story was also really,
yes.
besides entertaining, it was just super encouraging because he talked
Mhm.
about being a musician with cerebral palsy
Right.
and
Right.
how he started in Pilates as like a dude and being like, we do this as a girl thing. And now he just fell in love with it. And that translated
Mhm.
to, where's he at? Krav Maga?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and just,
if I remember correctly, his path was Pilates to I want to say the second one was CrossFit, but I might have this order reversed. I think it was next to CrossFit
yeah,
and then into powerlifting and Krav.
yeah,
Like that is quite the progression, you know?
yeah. It was so funny too. Oh my gosh, what a funny
Yeah.
interview that one was. But
Yeah.
and then Mackenzie we had as a power lifter, which boy,
Yeah.
she has a story. And
Mhm.
she still hasn't gotten it quite figured out. So update on her is it turns out
Yeah, I
it's
was gonna
not
ask.
cubital tunnel. They think it's actually thoracic outlet, I think.
That's potentially better. I don't know.
I don't
At
either.
least, I mean, that's a tough one because it's like, well, that means that something else is going on, which makes it harder to treat, but
I'm so frustrated on her behalf that
yeah.
they haven't been able to figure it out. But this is the thing when
Yeah.
it comes to nerves and when it
Right.
comes to weakness, it's like, well, you can't just treat the spot. You got to trace it up. And then
The whole thing.
it's this whole process. So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah. And then she wasn't the only one. I mean, Hillary had
Yeah.
a story that was really kind of interesting. I mean, she got
Yeah.
smacked with COVID. You remember
Yeah.
that? Yeah. And then she had to come back from that. And she was a flute player turned composer. And
Yeah.
so her whole journey lately has been about forgiveness, which I just think is so wonderful, and
Yeah.
which ties into our comparison is the Thief of Joy episode, her
Right.
episode in that one.
Right. Well, I was going to comment on that too, just scrolling through. I'm like, I'm so still just mentally in the space of we're interviewing people. And I realized that um our last, let me see, scroll real quick, make sure I'm not full of crap. So episodes 41 through 49. And then again, recurring with 51 and now this one, those have been all on our own again.
Yeah.
And it didn't even occur to me that they've been all like, obviously it was like, okay, it's time to cultivate some more interviews. But I think it was that we had so much from talking to all those people, so much to go off of that we were able to do that big of a run. That's a pretty big run for us now of separate episodes.
Yeah.
We've got a
Yeah.
couple peppered throughout our big interview season, if you will. But it's like,
We did. You did a solo. You did your
yeah,
first solo episode.
I did a solo episode.
Mini
Update
episode.
on that. I still have not done a competition. I'm working on not beating myself up for that.
Good.
Still trying to
Good.
head in that direction. Like, it's okay. We're going to get there. And like, yeah, that was a tough one to record. And I was like, we need to do this. It needs to happen.
It does. It does. And that resonated with people. I mean, I got a phone call from Zeldy. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. If you're listening, she called me on the
Mhm.
phone to tell me Doc Jen is going to do great when she goes to her thing. And, and she was just like super into you. And she's a accordion
Yeah.
player from Miami. And she plays saxophone. She plays all these things, clarinet and euphonium and I mean, all kinds of random stuff. And she's just the coolest person. You never know
Yeah.
who's listening to your podcast, right? But
Right.
she just wanted like to press on the message. Tell Dr. Jen she's going to do great when she goes to her competition. I'm rooting for her. She's going to be fine. She's going to be great. I'm like, that's awesome. You got fans and you didn't even
Appreciate
know you
it.
had
You
fans,
know?
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I
But
mean, we didn't just go through that. We did a whole series on like mental wellness and
yes.
business because we talked to Heidi and we
Mhm.
talked to
Garrett too.
Garrett. Oh, that was a great episode.
Mhm.
Wow, that was just, I mean, powerful. And then
Mhm.
Brian's episode on business too. And then Ashley,
Yes.
her too.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to get her in for part two.
Yep. Oh,
Because
and
we
Austin. Can't forget
yes.
Austin.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, the
We got
functional
we've got
musician.
several people that we need to get in for part two. Because I know that we started on several topics that just like, oh man, we don't have time to do this right now. But
It
so
was just too much. And I mean,
mhm.
we got to interview who came right after Ashley.
Scroll through
Oh
here.
gosh. Her name
Give me a
escapes me.
description, I'll help
I
you.
can see her face. Viola player.
Allison.
Allison. I knew it started with an A. Allison. I don't know Allison. My gosh. She and I were just about to room together at Symphonia
Mhm.
when it got canceled. Thankfully, because it was gonna be like 4 days after this accident. So I was like,
Yeah.
yes. And then she texted me, she goes, we were gonna be roommates. I'm like, it's been like 4 years, darn it. Maybe next time when they
Yeah.
reschedule, go figure. I've not seen her in person in years. And she actually had like a really bad car accident. I think that was right before our episode, right? Like a little while before.
I believe well, let me find out because it was right before a gig she and I had together.
Oh, okay.
September, yeah, this should have been right around that time. So it was either immediately before we recorded or
Yeah.
shortly after.
It was a
No,
freak
it would have
thing
been
too.
after. It was after. Shortly
Okay.
after.
Well, FYI, guys, she had a freak car accident right after. It was
Yeah.
not a
She's
small
fine.
one. She's
No.
okay. Her car
She's
was
fine.
not.
No. She definitely had some rehab to do.
Yeah. Wow.
But she's lifting again.
Oh, good.
So, yeah.
Good.
Yep. Back
And I
to
think
lifting.
Mackenzie's still lifting. So there's that too. And
I hope
Veronica's back to
she
lifting. So that's good.
well, good. I hope Mackenzie did look into some of those alternative the straps and everything that I'd mentioned to her, which I think is I just it's popping in my head. It's kind of funny because right now at the gym that I coach out of, we have bless you. We have
Okay.
a gal who's she was
Pardon me. Sorry, guys.
bless you. She was born without one arm and one leg.
Same
And
side or
so
opposite side?
oh,
It
I
makes
gotta
you
be
wonder
honest.
if
She's
that's easier or
usually
harder.
right. She's usually in there when I'm coaching my class.
Oh,
So
so you're not paying attention.
yeah, I see her, I say hi to her, but like I'm very much occupied with my clients. I don't remember if they're same side or opposite side, but she's like got this really neat prosthetic leg that she's trying to test. It's a prototype, and she's learning to squat with it. She's deadlifting with that and like an over the back. So I'm like watching her
Wow.
coach, the owner of the gym, who's like got her doing all this strap movement and like bands, and I'm like, I wonder if Mackenzie ever looked into that.
Right?
The equipment's out there. It's out there. And if you get
Yeah.
creative, it's even easier.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. So,
Right. I think that's been most of our big episodes. I know we had quite a few little
mhm.
series that we did, and we just finished one up.
Yeah. We did a series on focal dystonia too.
Oh
Well,
gosh,
that was an interview series. That was awesome.
that was amazing. Between Mark and Anna, those two together were just the information we got was nothing I've heard anywhere.
It was stuff that I mean, like I said, I had worked with somebody who came out of dystonia and was able to perform again. So I had heard that through that person's story, but not through the reading. The literature out there still says you can't come back from it, and that's
Yeah,
wrong.
correct.
So to hear people who are, the one who's coming out of it currently, and the other who is working with people to get them out of it. That was really, really, really cool.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So where are we going forward with this?
Yeah. So aside from, it seems like we're finally starting to be able to produce things consistently.
I know.
um, and I definitely intend to get back to the advertising stuff. But moving forward with the recordings,
Mhm.
we've got a couple people on our radar right now. The next scheduled one as of this moment is in a couple weeks. That is Brian Corbin. He got his master's when I was at Florida State, same time. But I mean, he's running his own clarinet repair business, working with company. I don't remember where they're located, but basically he developed this line of clarinets with them that is supposed to be the affordable professional alternative because clarinet prices have gone through the roof. So
Yeah.
that's going to be very much a business oriented episode.
Nice.
I'm talking to a Feldenkrais practitioner who's interested. We have not booked him yet, but drummer slash Feldenkrais practitioner who actually uses it in lessons.
Oh, you just talked about drummers and we forgot about Nadia.
We did talk to Nadia. Yeah.
That's a really interesting thing she's doing. So if you're a drummer and you're listening, please hit her up because she needs more
Oh yeah.
data.
Yes. Yeah. So I think if I remember correctly, I think this one that I'm talking to right now, the Feldenkrais guy, I think he would be
Yeah.
our second drummer related person.
Mike
I
is
don't
also a
think
drummer.
I did not realize that. For some
Oh yeah.
reason, I had him on
He
a
didn't really
different
talk about
instrument.
it much.
No, he really didn't.
He really didn't.
So, we're getting percussionists in. I'm pursuing a couple of body mapping leads too.
Mm.
hmm hmm The one that I had initially contacted is too busy, but like very excited. And she's like, here's all these people you can talk to. Please see if one of them
Nice.
we can do that. Yeah, couple
Yeah,
other
man.
people in the back of my head to talk to. Haven't reached out to them yet. I think you had some people on your radar too.
I do. I'll be honest, I don't remember who all they were. There is a lady here in Nashville. There's a There'll be a YouTube video going up soon about when she came to my house a couple weeks ago, right after the accident, and she deals with nerve stuff, vagus nerve, vestibular system,
Mm,
concussive therapy. So she's like, "You had a stage 3 concussion, huh? See if we can help." And the stuff that she had me
good.
do was just so weird. I mean, just small stuff. Anyway, she deals with musicians a lot. She's headed out to the Olympic Village tomorrow, so I think she's going to be out for a minute, but she should be coming back soon. And her name is Liz. Her business is called Restage. So if you guys want to check her out on Instagram, that's where she is. I've got a couple other people kind of thinking I haven't reached out to them recently, so we'll save that on the back burner for now. But
Yeah.
she's like the forefront of my mind at the moment.
Yep. So we're working on more interviews, more data for you guys. If you have any suggestions for people that we should talk to or topics that we should cover, please leave them in the comments or message us or both.
Yeah, absolutely.
know?
Because I mean, I feel like we've run the gamut, but then we get into talking about something, and then it's because this podcast isn't just about. It started about just strength, and it's not that anymore. It's all about, we're covering the gamut from mental wellness to fitness to, professional business wellness. I mean, it just covers like, what are the things that matter to us as musicians, as entrepreneurs, as strength trainers? How can you be strong in your finances and in your mental health and in your emotional health and in your physical health and musically? They all tie together, and they're all things that we think are really important.
Right. And I mean, for me, this whole podcast has just become, what do you need to know to survive as a human who is also a musician?
Yeah.
Like the music part, you're going to get that elsewhere, but the life stuff, I mean, that's what we're often missing.
The stuff you're not hearing about, that's why I thought the business stuff was so important, because we're just not getting that kind of entrepreneurial stuff. We're not getting the wellness stuff.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
nothing against body mapping or Alexander or any of that. I mean, we hear a lot about that, but there's so many other avenues that are just not
Mhm.
talked about, like Tamani, like
Yeah.
yoga, like Pilates, like
Right.
the nerve stuff, like brain
Right.
training. I mean, they all have
Well,
their place, and every musician has what resonates with them. No pun
exactly.
intended.
Jeez.
That was good. I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, we've talked about this before too. Everything has its place, and maybe you need to know what Alexander technique is. Maybe everybody
Mhm.
talks about it, but you don't actually know what it is, or stuff like that. We're here to do that. And when we're talking about the business stuff, I mean, if we're going to talk about, this is kind of my mindset here. If we're going to talk about physical wellness, you have to talk about mental wellness also.
Mhm.
And mental wellness is not going to be in place unless you're covering, certain other bases, food and sleep and. But if you're in that kind of funk where you're like, I graduated and I don't have, quote, the job, like we talked about with Heidi,
Yeah.
and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to end up in a funk. And that is just a great place to start a downward spiral from.
Yeah. So that,
So,
talking about their Ultimate Music Business Summit, I mean, that covered a lot
mhm,
of things. The
mhm,
episode we did on comparison is the thief of joy, like where you're coming
yeah.
from, where you're comparing yourself, whether it was from a good position you were in before and
Mhm,
comparing yourself to your past or to your
mhm,
peers is
mhm.
not always a bad thing, but it's not necessarily always a good thing either. So
Right. It can be problematic if you're not careful.
exactly. Exactly. So
So,
take that with a grain of salt and don't listen to
yeah.
all our episodes, honestly.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
just thought of somebody we should talk to. Have you have you heard of Lee Pearson?
Yes.
She's kind of been a mentor
Yeah.
to me over the years, and I don't know why I didn't think about her till just now. But if you guys have not talked to Lee, I'm going to reach out and see if she'd be open to being on our
Yeah. That'd be great.
podcast. She's amazing. I know. Heck, maybe even Ava one day would be into it.
You know
Why
what?
was I think of her? Who introduced us?
I'm meeting with her in February.
Ask her.
I didn't think about her because she was too busy and then she was in
She's
Switzerland.
always, yeah, she's always so busy. And I
So
never
I'm
know
gonna
what
meet with
continent
her.
she's on either. So, you
Gonna meet
know,
with her in February and we're hoping to
good.
yeah, we're hoping to move some dynamic integration stuff in the US, which is not being done at the moment.
Tell people real
Um
quick what dynamic integration is and what Ava does or did.
yeah.
Real quick.
So much like much like the other bodywork mediums, it's going to be hard to describe to anybody's satisfaction. But my best explanation is if you are familiar with the Feldenkrais awareness through movement specifically
Hey, hold on.
approach.
Gonna have to pause you for a second. There's a guy about to show up at my front door. You keep talking. I'm gonna mute. Be right back.
Okay. All right. So dynamic integration. If you're aware of the Feldenkrais awareness through movement aspect, so there's two different movement or two different approaches to Feldenkrais. One is hands on, the other is hands off. Awareness through movement is basically you're going to take some space and you're going to just very, very slowly micro movement to feel various aspects of your body and your movement quality and your structure. Dynamic integration is built off of that. It is a German system. Um, and basically, what it is most sessions, not all, most begin lying on the floor and kind of integrating gravity as a support system instead of something that pulls you down, that sort of thing. Micro movements very slowly to feel things. Now, where it really differs from Feldenkrais, in my opinion, as far as I'm aware, because again, there's some translation problems right now at the moment that we're working to overcome, but dynamic integration does get hands on. So
I
it
loved it
takes
when I took
that
it.
Yeah, it takes that super slow, just awareness-based approach, and if you're really struggling, the instructor will get hands-on with you and help guide you, that sort of
Mhm,
thing, but it's still
mhm.
very slow, very exploratory, really relaxing. I mean, I loved it. Like,
I took
loved
it
it,
all
loved it,
4
loved it.
semesters I was at FSU. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, it is,
Increases
it
your
is.
it increases not just your body awareness, but your understanding of how your body moves and what
Yes,
you do.
yes, and your literal physical structure in a way that you don't just innately have. most likely. Is extremely rare, if not impossible. So,
On that
yeah,
note, I have to run.
yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening and tuning in to our recap episode.
Thank you for joining us for 50 some odd episodes.
Yep,
Watch our
and let us
social
know
media.
what
We
you
have a
want to see
montage.
next. Yeah, montage comment. Let us know what you want to see next. Like, subscribe, share. Please share. We
Share.
need help.
Thank you,
All right,
guys.
bye, everyone.
Hey musicians, did you know that up to 90% of musicians will experience playing related pain or injury over the course of their career? How many hushed conversations have you heard about a lingering, quote, shoulder pain or a weird tingling in your fingers? Or maybe low back pain or a crampy weakness, or maybe you or your colleague just says, I just have to get through the gig. And you watch them pop Advil like candy, maybe flush it down with whiskey. How many times have we seen something like this? So many, right? Well, it's time we start talking about our struggles, our pain, our frustrations in a private space where we don't just complain and mobilize and blindly stretch, but we learn how to strengthen our muscles, our career successes, and build each other up. I've got a brand new program that combines all of these things, and I want you to be a part of it. It's a community, not a workout. It's a community with group coaching and great content that in 12 weeks will have you understanding more about your body, what you need, and how you work so you can avoid that career-threatening injury. The 3 things that musicians don't want. We don't want to be injured. We don't want to have a lack of stamina. And we don't want to be clueless. AKA, when you hurt, who do you go see? Just a quote doctor? Well, this program addresses all of those things. You're going to walk away with an immense knowledge of who to see. You're going to be empowered because you're going to know what to do should you ever get injured, or should you have a colleague that gets injured. You will be able to actually offer appropriate advice. You're also going to learn about the body and the anatomy as it relates to playing your instrument and your own anatomy. And then you're going to learn how to build not just your strength and endurance, but you're going to learn how to design your own corrective exercise program. So I hope you will join me in this new program. It's called the Music Strong Pilot Program, Job Security for Musicians.